Here. Commissioner Burns?
Here.
Commissioner Fernandez?
Here.
Vice Chair Hanley?
Here.
And Chair Fritz?
Here.
Okay, we have all members accounted for. Thank you very much, and it's wonderful to see you all.
You too. Next up, we have comments from members of the public on items that are not on this afternoon's agenda. So if you have anything you'd like to say that is not on today's agenda that has to do with Planning Commission roles and responsibilities, now is your opportunity. You can, you can come up to the podium.
And just a note for those who are on Zoom, the way we do this is we'll take one person from in the room, and if there's any commenters online, we'll do that, and we'll just go back and forth. And you will have 3 minutes, and Susie will, over here to my right, will have a timer. For those of you on Zoom, or if you look at the screen, it'll be at the top of the screen.
I live on West Street. The subject is Strout Street, which is, don't think it's been repaved. I don't think it's been repaved since I moved in about 30 years ago. There's a whole generation of supervisors that have gone through here. I've complained to. They say it's based on number of trips used, by pedestrian, not by cars per year and that. 30 years, I think we've probably accumulated that amount as some others. But anyway, drive the street and you will know yourself it needs repair. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone on Zoom that would like to make a comment for items not on the agenda? Seeing none. Anyone else in the room? Okay, then we will close that.
And just of note, we have not received any comments from the public related to your items not on the agenda.
Great. Item 4 is statements of conflicts of interest. I have a conflict with item 6A, so I will be recusing myself from that. Any other commissioners have conflicts?
I have a conflict with B and 6B and 6C. 6B is my neighbor and 6C is within 500 feet.
All right.
Okay,
Anyone?
and just for those in you public who might be wondering about this, so as planning commissioners, state law requires that if a commissioner does live within 500 feet of a property that has a hearing for it, that they need to automatically recuse themselves, or if they've done business with any of the applicants, there's a potential conflict of interest. So that's the recusals for those items. We do still have a quorum for those. The way we'll do this, we'll ask for when we get to those items, we will ask that commissioner to leave. And if you wanted to just go outside, we'll come and get you when we're done with those items.
Sounds good. All right. So with that, we will move on to approval of the minutes. We have 3 sets of minutes to approve. So we'll start with August 22nd, 2023. Is there any comments or additions, changes, revisions? Go ahead, Kathy.
I move we approve the minutes of August 22nd, 2023.
Any other changes or?
I will second that. Abstain.
All
Okay,
right. Well, we'll take a vote on that one.
Thank you. Commissioner Ottinger,
Aye.
Commissioner Burns. Okay. Commissioner Fernandez,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hanley.
Abstain.
Thank you. And Chair Fritz.
Aye.
Okay, so that motion passes 3-0 with 2 abstentions of Commissioner Burns and Vice Chair Hanley.
Okay, next we have March 12th, 2024. Any comments or revisions? Kathy.
I move we approve the minutes of March 12th, 2024.
All right.
I'll second that.
Thank you. All right. We have first and a second. Go ahead,
Okay.
call the vote.
Yes. Commissioner Ottinger,
Aye.
Commissioner Burns.
Abstain.
Thank you. Commissioner Fernandez,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hanley,
Aye.
and Chair Fritz.
Aye.
Okay, so that motion passes 4-0 with 1 abstention of Commissioner Burns.
And Finally, we have the meeting of March 26th, 2024. Kathy,
I move we approve the minutes of March 26, 2024.
thank you.
Oh, second that.
All right, let's call for a vote.
Okay, and Commissioner Ottinger,
Aye.
Commissioner Burns,
Abstain.
thank you. Commissioner Fernandez,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hanley,
Aye.
and Chair Fritz.
Aye.
Thank you. And so that those minutes are approved as well, 4-0 with one abstention of Commissioner Burns.
Thank you.
And thank you very much. I think we are pretty much caught up on minutes at this point. So
Yay.
very much appreciated for our very long admin person absence. And a big thank you to Zuzi for helping to track and manage those, as well as she's now back to doing the minutes now that we're at the action minutes. So.
All right. So item 6A, I'll recuse myself and turn this over to our Vice Chair, Commissioner Hanley.
All right. And Paul, are you going to be outside or just outside their door? Okay, great. We'll know where to find you.
All right. Can we have the presentation of the staff report?
Yes, thank you. So this is a temporary use permit for the trade marketplace, which was formerly known as Head West in the Barlow. This temporary use permit focuses on local makers, merchants, crafters, designers, and artists to take place 1 week in a month on the Barlow streets. Roughly 75 to 100 vendors are proposed to set up 10 by 10 canopies and tables within their vendor booths. And depending on the vendor, some may display clothing on clothing racks and shelves. The applicant would also like to promote live musicians to participate in the performing at their events. For this marketplace, they are proposing to hold these events the third Sunday of the month from March until November of 2024. The operating hours of the event will be 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and that includes setup and breakdown. The trade marketplace will take place on a privately owned portions of McKinley Street from 6780 and Pink Lady Court in the city of Sebastopol. This is similar to, and in some ways a replacement, as I mentioned, is the Head West Marketplace. With that, I will conclude the staff report. A lot of the conditions of approval are similar to ones that were previously approved for Head West Marketplace. And I believe the applicant is here on Zoom to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Do any commissioners have questions of staff? I have one. I'm just curious, in terms of business licenses, how the city audits that each of the market stall holders has a business license.
Yes, so the city still does require business licenses for the individual vendors. It is something that we have been working with the Barlow over the last year from previous events to make sure that all those vendors do have active business licenses. So I hope that answers that question.
Right. And just the city has what's called a festival license. And so that's the same kind of thing that the farmers market people and the makers market and the apple blossom, that's the same kind of a thing. It's not the same as the other business license, which is for a fixed location.
Okay, thank you. If the applicant would like to make their presentation.
Yeah, would that be me? Sorry.
Yes, Mercedes.
Okay. Would you like me to just share a little bit about the trade event that's happening?
That would be great.
Okay, yeah, awesome. So my name is Mercedes Hernandez. I was just brought on by the Barlow as the new events manager. I have past experience of hosting events in the city of Santa Rosa. I'm local here. And so with the trade, what we were hoping to do is have it hosted the third Sunday of every month from March through November. This is our first year doing it. And what you can find at the trade is small businesses locally who sell anything from vintage clothing, jewelry, antique vendors. We'll have a couple of food vendors join us as well. And we'll have just live performance by local artists and musicians. And our event is from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. And like they had mentioned too, the event is 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. with setup and breakdown included in that time. And this is just hosted again, just the third Sunday of the month. I know Head West was doing a Saturday and Sunday of every month. And so this would just be that one-time event in hopes of bringing the community out to the city of Sebastopol and to the Barlow as well. And just supporting, businesses who maybe don't have brick and mortars and just highlighting those artists local in our area. That's pretty much what the trade is.
Okay, thank you, Mercedes.
Mhm.
Do we have any comments from the members of the public? We'll start in the room. No comments in the room. Any comments via Zoom? No comments via Zoom.
I'm not seeing, John. Did we receive any public comments on this item?
No, we did not.
Thank you.
Are there any specific questions of the applicant? Please.
I have a question and a concern that's been brought up here before from the tenants in the Barlow when these events are happening. You would think logically that it would bring more business, but it actually dissuades business and they're paying rent for those spaces and it really takes away from their business. My concern is for the people who are there, who are paying rent and who are losing. Will you have any way that potentially you could have a community table where maybe someone from your team can man it with a representation of things that are in the Barlow, some way to help promote and cross-promote them so that it can be a win-win situation for you as well as for the people who are there day in and day out?
Yeah, so that was a concern when I first joined the Barlow team. So I do work for the Barlow now. And with Head West, they would close down the streets and Head West wouldn't bring out a lot of people to their event. So I curated this event to be different than Head West as far as what makers are participating. And all the events that I do host with the Barlow, I keep the tenants in mind. So, thankfully we were able to have our first event past March. So I touched base with the tenants of the Barlow and many of them were really ecstatic. They hadn't seen that many people come out in a long time. So far we've gotten great feedback, but yeah, my main intention with this event and others going forward is keeping the Barlow tenants in mind. And many of them actually did set up a booth in the market as well, in addition to their brick and mortar space.
Great. Thank you so much. I mean, it was never a matter of there not being a great attendance because there was a lot of foot traffic and go. It was a matter of usually when you have events like that, people don't go to the vendors. It's counterintuitive, but it is true being a merchant for over 25 years. And so there's an olive oil woman. She can't set up a table because she's a single person working, can't staff. So I love it that you're thinking of the merchants there. And I would just love to throw out if there's an opportunity to have a Barlow table that, people could share, some way that it could be really inclusive. So it's a win-win. I think that would be fantastic. But thank you so much for bringing that to the attention. Very different. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Would any other members of the commission like to speak on this?
Yes, thank you, Mercedes, for that. I just wanted to emphasize, because it always comes up as an issue regarding parking, and just to emphasize the parking in the theater, Rialto Theater. They always have issues, and we always request that they have security personnel there and people that are watching that area, because some people park there and it kind of disrupts their business. So kind of an example of where a business that doesn't necessarily help out. So just wanted to, I know it's all part of the requirements and so forth, but I just wanted to emphasize that and just kind of as a reminder of that.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Yeah, thinking about it, I don't think we had that this past time because I know with Peacetown that is enforced. So I'll be sure to let the property manager know too that if we can enforce that for the trade events as well.
Great, thank you. And just a note of public process. I don't believe Chair Fritz should be viewable on the video as recused himself.
Thank you for that. And Paul, if you're listening, if you wouldn't mind, just turn off your video, or actually Zuzi, if you can turn off his video, that'd be great. One of the two. Perfect. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Thank you for that point of order.
Thank you. Any other comments?
That you will look at the parking at the Rialto Theater as well. That said, I recommend that I move that we approve the permit based on the facts, finding, and analysis set forth in the staff report.
I'll second that.
And before we vote, I just want to comment. Yeah, the Barlow's always been very cooperative and always takes public comments to heart and always tries to improve things. And, I'm always glad that they're doing that and appreciate always being a good neighbor to work with. So I would fully support this.
So since we have a motion,
Would you like to call for a vote?
yes, I'd
Vice
like to
Chair?
go for a vote. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Ottinger,
Aye.
Commissioner Burns,
Yes.
Commissioner Fernandez,
Aye.
and Vice Chair Hanley.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously, 4-0. There is a 7-day appeal period. The current event is actually an extension of last year's, but then this will, if it's not appealed, presumably be complete as of next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mercedes. Good luck with everything.
Awesome. Thank you again.
I do know this one on Lawrence. But this is, that's on.
Ready to go?
As soon as John comes back, he's going to get the
Oh,
staff
he's gonna-
report.
okay.
Yep. He's getting vice chair settled.
All right, so we'll continue on with item 6B, 7300 Mary's Lane, for public hearing to consider an application for a conditional use permit to allow a non-hosted rental for more than 31 days. Staff report, please.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, this is a conditional use permit application for a non-hosted vacation rental for 31 days or more per year. The application was submitted by Donovan Brockway, and it includes a request to rent out their 3-bedroom house for periods of time when they're traveling. So as mentioned in the permit request, this does require a use permit per our code. Table 17.260-1 requires a conditional use permit approved by the Planning Commission for any non-hosted vacation rental for more than 31 days. The request also includes for the allowance of renting out 3 rooms on the property. I do want to mention that currently in our zoning code, it does not place a room restriction on non-hosted vacation rentals. It does, however, post a restriction for hosted vacation rentals of no more than 2 bedrooms. However, in that same section of the code, no more than 2 There is a 1 parking space per room rental for vacation rentals. With that, the site would require 5 on-site parking spaces, as off-site or street parking would not be allowed for this. During staff's review of the project plans, it was found that the site does not provide the required parking spaces needed to allow for the 3rd bedroom to be rented out. Staff, however, is recommending that the Planning Commission look at the possibility of this 3rd room being rented out if the proposed 3rd room is being used by kids that are under the legal driving age, as they would not be traveling with a vehicle. As staff did reach out to the applicant, there was a additional piece of information that was provided by the applicant to prove that they had a 5th parking space on site. That is a part of the staff report. And as far as the recommendations go, I want to reiterate that staff believes that the use is compatible with the site and recommends approval, subject to the following key conditions, whether that be not allow the 3rd bedroom be available for rent, or allow the 3rd bedroom to be rented out, but this room shall only be available to children traveling with potential renters. And that the applicant shall provide a plan of which bedrooms will be available for rent and which will be off limits. So with that, I will conclude the staff report and answer any questions that the commission may have.
And just to clarify that, in the recommended conditions, 1A would be if you just don't want to allow the 3rd bedroom to be rented. If you want it to be rented, but rented only to children, then that would be 1B. But 1A and C, I guess, would need to be together if it's not allowing the 3rd bedroom, and then having to clarify which is that 3rd bedroom. That would be off limits.
Kathy?
So am I the only one confused about the fact that you need 5 parking spaces for 3 bedrooms?
No, I'm confused about that too.
Yeah, okay, good.
So our code requires 2 parking spaces for the residential use. And for the vacation rental, for each bedroom that's non-hosted, it requires 1 additional parking space on site for each bedroom that's being rented out. So there's 2 required for the whole use, and then 1 additional for each bedroom that would be rented out. So a total of 5.
So oftentimes when people go on vacation, if they're flying somewhere, they're not going to take their cars. So their cars are still going to be parked there
That had to be.
in the garage or wherever. Yeah. And so that's the
Okay, sure, makes sense.
Go ahead.
I'm also confused about when you're saying rent the bedrooms. So the way you're making it sounds like they could conceivably rent each bedroom to a different person. Like for rented bedrooms, it's like generally when you have a vacation rental by owner, one person rents the entire house. There could be adults, children, or whatever. So you're saying rented bedrooms. Are they renting this as a house, or are they renting it as individual bedrooms?
So it's for the house. Our code is a little confusing in that way that there is on the hosted ones, there's a maximum allowance of 2 bedrooms that are allowed to be rented out. So if you had a 3-bedroom house, you could not rent out that 3rd bedroom as a non-hosted, as a hosted rental. And there's a maximum amount of people per.
But only one renter would be
Correct.
renting it.
It's yes. It's not a separate.
Okay.
It wouldn't be a separate entity in each bedroom. It would be overall the total guests.
And then I was trying to look into this a little bit because it's been a bit of a hot buzz here, for the last couple of years. And there's been changes in the code and in Santa Rosa and like different places about whether or not to allow people to have, we had a huge meeting where people were very upset here about, back and forth. So where is the city landed, right? You can't have a vacation rental unless you have a permit for it. But do we have a max amount of permits for the city? And
we don't currently have a
That's
maximum set up. However, when we do review them, we look at concentrations in a certain neighborhood or part of town to make sure that that neighborhood is not becoming a vacation rental neighborhood, and it's still intact with the residential neighborhood aspect. So that is something that we look at when we do the review. We do have a vacation rental tracking system that takes a look at vacation rentals that are listed on Airbnb and those other websites to make sure that they're in compliance. And if they're out of compliance, then we do send them notice letters to make sure that either that they're a legal rental, or if they are illegally posted, then we get them into compliance.
Great. I couldn't find the amount, so I was confused about that. Makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Currently, we don't have a set number
makes
yet.
sense.
That could be something that we look at in the future as vacation rentals do.
Thank you so much.
Right, and Commissioner Burns, just one further clarification. In the past, one of the issues with non-hosted vacation rentals has been the conversion of permanent housing for permanent residents. And in this case, that isn't the case because they're be maintaining a permanent
That
residence.
was a big
Yeah.
issue we
Yeah.
had here at the commission, and people were very upset about, they're getting more money and we don't have, although I will say there's a lot of residents here who are looking for temporary housing, who want to live here. So yes, I
Yes.
remember.
Yeah, and that is certainly still something that we discuss with applicants or with and provide that guidance.
Kathy?
Yeah, and I was wondering if we did find that map, Susie, were you able to locate the map of where other Airbnbs or rentals exist? I know there aren't any more on Mary's Lane, but it's a very short street and it is kind of a
So I'm
Close
sharing
neighborhood.
my screen. The map is kind of,
It's nicely distributed when you look at
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, perfect. Let's keep it
almost
that
a
way.
grid.
Yeah.
try to see if we can find Mary's Lane.
Carrie, to your answer to my question, can we ask or, what they are going to be charging and for,
So I think, are the applicants here or online?
Yes, we're here.
Perfect. So if you, do you want to go ahead and, while we're pulling up this map, say a few words about your proposed rental?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so my name is Donovan Brockway. This is my wife, Sarah. We are applying for the non-hosted vacation permit at our home in Sebastopol. So it's off of Florence Ave on Mary's Lane. This home has been in our family since 2011. It was my mom's house until she relocated in 2020. And it's just a great downtown location, and we've loved living here. We want to keep it in the family, keep it our home. We both grew up in Sebastopol. We're locals. We just travel a lot, and you can.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we absolutely understand the, what it means to be a local in Sebastopol, and the fact that, we don't want people coming in and converting our beautiful community into vacation rentals. So we're very aware of that. That said, we split our time between here and Utah because we have extended family and family that needs caretaking there, as well as the fact that we both work remotely. And so, over the past couple of years, it's been tricky for us to balance being gone for so many months and also owning this beautiful home that we don't want to get rid of. And so it's tricky for us to long-term rent or even rent 30 days at a time because our schedule is a little bit unpredictable. And so we settled on the idea that, maybe we could share this home with people traveling and I have a vacation rental background as well. And so I want to be very picky about who we choose to host and offer an upscale experience, but also get to share this beautiful location near Florence Avenue and walking distance to the Barlow as well. So we would not be giving up our home. That's never our intention, but it would be wonderful for us to be able to supplement our overhead costs while we are traveling for multiple months of the year.
Great, thank you.
With regards to rates, though, someone did ask that. We have not considered that yet. We are coming to this meeting just hoping to see what happens. We absolutely have no idea what rates would be charged yet. So just to answer that.
Great, that's fine. Thank you. Any questions of staff or the applicant?
Yeah, so it kind of makes more sense to me that to have the additional residential parking if it was a hosted rental, because you would need the 2 parking for the host, and then you would need the 3 parking for the guests. So with the hosts not being there, if the parking spaces, if there's 3 parking spaces available, wouldn't that be enough? In that normally you would have 5, but those 2 would be occupied by the resident. So wouldn't 3 parking spaces be sufficient to satisfy that need?
Okay, so we just checked our code, and I'll just read it. It does look like hosted requires the parking spaces for the owner, because they're obviously going to be there, and plus the bedrooms. For non-hosted, it says the requirement is 1 on-site parking space for each sleeping room or guest bedroom in the rental. If the garage is used to meet that requirement, then it needs to be accessible, and that's all it says. So it should just be the 3.
3. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought makes sense. Okay.
Are there any other questions of staff or the applicant at this point? Okay, at this point, I will open it up to members of the public. So if anyone from the public would like to speak on this item, you can come up to the podium if you're in the room. If you're online, you can raise your virtual hand, and we'll go alternate between the room and Zoom. So we'll start with the room. If anyone in the room would like to make a comment on this, please come to the podium. You have 3 minutes to make your comment. Please come ahead, step up.
Is it, if it's green already? Okay, all right. So again, David Stallman. I live on West Street, which is just down the block and around the corner from this project. My concerns are, and it was kind of semi-answered, this is it would be an Airbnb type rental or something. And if it becomes like a party facility with a lot of noise and, extra curricular activities, shall we say, how do the local residents, how do they handle that matter besides calling the police? And what are their backdrops in that? And, the 31 days rental per year, I guess that's in the code or something. After 31 days, it has to be approved. And one of the other concerns we had was parking. And we live down the street, and the wind is from that direction. So any noise, if it becomes a party thing, any noise is going to flow right down to us. So that's basically our concerns.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone on Zoom that would like to make a comment? I don't see anyone but the applicants and us. So anyone else in the room like to make a comment on this item? Seeing no one, we'll close the public comment portion of this item and bring it back to the commission for further discussion or deliberation or motions. Go ahead, Debbie.
I'm still super confused about how 3 bedrooms would need 3 cars, because that would mean there'd be 3 separate adults who are of driving age.
So you could have, and I know I've done this out at Tamales a while back, where a group of girlfriends, but we all arrived separately.
Okay. I mean,
So,
I guess I'm addressing the concern from the public.
Right.
It seems like most of the time families are renting 3 bedrooms. It wouldn't be a party situation, but if you do need, not in your case, Carrie, but if there are 3 separate, groups coming, I could see it being 3 young couples who are like, is there a way, that we could find this peaceful middle ground where we could, say, I don't know, like they can have 3 cars, but can we talk about the type of tenants that can be there? Or is that out of our spectrum?
So I think it might be helpful if John talked a little bit about what our rules and answer the question about the ramifications of a party house scenario, because we're pretty tight on that.
Yeah, so within the conditions of approval, there's a lot of information as far as the rules and regulations when it comes to noise and all those types of things. So one of the conditions of approval is that there needs to be an authorized agent that is available 24/7 should somebody have a complaint or concern about something. And if they're not on site, then they have somebody there that can address that situation before it gets to calling the police or reaching out to the city to handle those things. If it becomes an issue where that is not happening, then the city does have the right to revoke that use permit for the vacation rental. So there are rules and regulations, and it's all within the conditions of approval that adhere to those things. So, quiet hours, no noise. If there's, pools or hot tubs or other areas that they're screened from adjacent properties to minimize noise, lighting impacts, and shall have hours of operations clearly posted to the adjacent facility. So the other parts of it is the owner operator shall post a copy of the approved vacation rental permit, including all applicable standards and limits and contact information of the authorized agent within the vacation rental and within 6 feet of the front door of the vacation rental, and include as part of all rental agreements. So there's a lot of information that covers all of these things. And it's all within the conditions of approval. So
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, and it's included in when you advertise for it. All of those conditions are included on there. I'd be a little more concerned if this was a non-hosted rental where the owners are out of the area. So they have to come back and live in this neighborhood. They know the neighbors. So my feeling is that they would want to keep peace in the neighborhood, and so that they would do their best to keep that. So I don't have a problem with this permit.
And we do have a commissioner who is a neighbor as well, so there will be close eyes on the property if it is rented. So then going back to the conditions of approval. So the condition number 1 about the bedroom rental or not, only available to children. I mean, it sounds like we do have enough parking. We have 3 parking spaces off street. We have 3 bedrooms, so we do meet that part of the code.
yeah, I
That's
believe
fine.
the parking issue, now that that's been clarified,
Yeah.
is not an issue anymore.
Okay.
So those
So we could
can
take
be struck or removed.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments or concerns or?
I motion for approval of the permit with those modifications made as far as the clarification on the parking.
I'll second.
Great, thank you. So motion is second. Any further comments or concerns from the commission? So the motion is to approve the permit with the striking condition number 1.
So it'd be one, items A, B, and C.
C.
We'll leave the one
Yeah, so just
substantial
leave the-
conformance
yeah.
with the permit. Yep.
Okay, so striking items 1A, 1B, and 1C. Great, then let's call for a vote, please.
Okay. Commissioner Ottinger,
Aye.
Commissioner Burns,
Yes.
Commissioner Fernandez,
Aye.
and Chair Fritz.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes 4-0, which is unanimous. There is a 7-day appeal period, after which time they can begin doing the rental if it's not appeal.
Great, thank you.
Great.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Good luck with your rentals.
Yeah, no, I would encourage you to talk to your neighbors, before you get going, just explain everything. So that I think that would be helpful.
Absolutely.
I think it'd be, again, to that point, make sure your neighbors know maybe when you're going to do it and they have your phone number in case there are.
And
things that come
actually,
up.
one note on that, we do handle approvals of vacation rentals slightly differently from any other approval, in that we do actually do a mailed notice
Mhm.
to neighbors at the 500 feet. So I believe it's the same as the hearing notice.
Mhm.
So anyone who is noticed of this, and so that they know that, and then they do have to have the contact of someone who's available 24 hours on file with the city. So.
Uh-huh. Great. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good luck.
Thank you.
And actually, Seth, you needed to
Yeah.
recuse yourself from
Yeah,
6C
you're
as
still- we're-
well. Sorry, we just got
We
done with
finished
6B.
6B. One more. All right, so we're moving on to item 6B, which is a public hearing to consider an application, 6C, I'm sorry, 6C, for 7365 Healdsburg Avenue, alcohol use permit for the Campanella Restaurant. We have staff report on that, please.
Okay, John will taking that staff report for 6C.
Thank you. So this is an alcohol use permit for the new restaurant Campanella at 7365 Healdsburg Avenue. Campanella's will occupy the same space where Flavors Bistro used to be. They were previously approved for a type 41 alcohol license. This request from the applicant is to change that to a type 47 and include more than 50 seats, which require approval from the Planning Commission for the additional seats. As requested by the applicant, the operating hours are from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, and from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. on Fridays and Saturdays. As mentioned, the request is also for a Type 47 alcohol license, which allows for on-site consumption of beer, wine, and distilled spirits for restaurants. As part of the review, there were some concerns that some of the neighbors did voice opinions about parking. So we have received comments of those. They are included in the staff report. The site does offer site parking and street parking as it's an existing restaurant. However, the current parking requirements, this use would not be out of compliance. The staff is also requesting that the Planning Commission provide a recommendation on how to best address the parking concerns of the neighbors. This can include signage or anything else the commission feels appropriate. Some of the other concerns that the neighbors had were towards music that the previous owners had over the years. Currently, this proposal does not include the request for live music and would not be allowed outside of what the city's noise ordinance normally allows. Staff feels that the music portion of it will be met with the conditions that are proposed. With that, I will conclude my staff report. Like I said, the only recommendation that we have is related to the on-site and off-site parking, and happy to answer any questions. And I believe we have the applicant here in the room to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions of staff?
Yeah. Were there any problems or issues or complaints with the previous occupant there in that site, that area? That might have been before me. So I'll turn to
Thank you.
Carrie.
Yes, there've been a couple of restaurants there. I guess we haven't received any complaints at the city specifically. We did have a couple of comments from folks who lived across the street and a block or so over with concerns that there was some parking happening at the adjacent or the nearby shopping center, I should say, where the Papa Murphy's Pizza is in the donut shop and the Paella restaurant. We haven't received complaints directly from those owners, but I think that's where John's thought of the signage was a potential. It could be a potential benefit to make sure that they know it's not it's someone else's parking for their businesses. A little history, there used to be more street parking in that area, but when Caltrans put in the bicycle lanes, some of the street parking was taken away. There is still street parking on that side of it, but there used to be street parking on the other side. I do know just from living nearby that there are folks who do park on the side, the small portions of the side streets of, DeFrank and Ellis and Cleveland. I wouldn't say that's necessarily an issue. That's because there's a lot of parking on those streets. I think when people do try to park around the corner on Florence, that is more of an issue because just because there's more limited parking and it's a little bit denser in that area.
Anyone else? Questions of staff?
I don't really have a question, but I feel, parking is just horrendous around that. I mean, it's like, Peter Lowell's, when that was, if you try to get or it is a situation there. So it's not like this properties. It's just like kind of all around. So it feels kind of, I think we need to do something in general, not just, make it be about that. But I love the idea of signage. I mean, I've been to neighborhoods where it's like no park, and I won't park there. So it's like, people can walk further. But I think signage is a great something to talk about. That would be a good.
Yeah, and I will note, just to reiterate what John had in the staff report, we don't have any parking sort of requirement change when it's going from a restaurant to a restaurant. It's the same use over, and what they're here for is actually the alcohol permit, not a permit for a restaurant that does not require a permit within the city.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
But it is a larger restaurant than the previous one. They've asked for more seating, or did the previous restaurant also have the same number of seats?
I believe it's the same amount of seats and square footage area, but I believe their dining was set up a little bit different than the new restaurant. So they're not expanding the building per se to add that additional seating. They're keeping it within the existing footprint.
I think it's the patio.
Correct. Yeah.
But I just thought with the additional seating, parking would be more of an issue because they'll have it.
Yeah, I completely understand where you're coming from on that side.
Okay, go ahead, Kathy.
Another question then. Could we make a requirement that their website indicate, what could you tell them? You're going to have to park and walk.
Well, you can certainly note where the downtown parking lots are. It's a little far walk from the plaza, but there is parking there. There is parking, just south of there at Pine Grove Square.
Yeah.
I've certainly have walked further than that,
Mhm.
From my house to the Hot Monk, which is at that parking lot.
Down at Safeway.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we wouldn't want them to advertise
No,
any
but-
private lots,
yeah.
but where there is,
That's where it's going to go.
yeah, public parking of sufficient areas, and that, is not a bad thing. And I know I have actually required that of applicants before
So we could
to know
actually-
where, especially where the city lots are and where, where there is public parking, because there are areas where there's more abundant street parking.
So it's reasonable to ask them to point out where the public parking is.
Yes, absolutely.
So I guess I'm a little confused about why we're talking about parking for the alcohol use permit. I mean, if it was a restaurant, it was permitted as a restaurant. I was assuming it was permitted with the parking that was available. And I'm not sure why it's just a new owner and a new restaurant. Nothing is really changing. I don't know why parking is now, how we would condition something about parking when we never had the previous restaurants conditioned anything about parking.
Well, staff was kind of mentioning it.
Yeah, I know, but
something
I
we
guess
should
that's why I'm
consider.
asking staff. I'm not sure why, if this was approved as a restaurant that had served alcohol originally, and nothing has changed in the use, they're not expanding the footprint, why is the parking? I mean, I get parking is maybe challenging in that area, but again, I don't know why we're putting that all on this particular applicant of an alcohol permit.
I guess I would only say that because it's a new permit, the raised concerns from the neighbors about the difficulties of parking in the neighborhood, and that at the time, maybe the old Flavors restaurant, whatever permits it went through, kind of heard the same things, and I don't
No,
know.
I guess
I
just
understand where you're coming from.
I just
but
find it strange.
yeah.
I'm not sure what the nexus is between what we're reviewing here tonight, which is an alcohol use permit. It hasn't really changed anything from a previous alcohol use permit or the previous use. Like, there's no change in use or function. So I'm not sure why we would contemplate changing some kind of parking requirement.
Well, I
or
think
making additional parking
there is going to
requirements.
be more seating, but that's what I'm saying. It shouldn't be about them. I agree with you. It's like, but overall in that area, if it's a problem and we want them to be successful in their business, I think us getting ahead of the problem, keeping the neighbors happy, and finding a way to like have some copacetic situation would be beneficial for them being in business and their other neighbors. So
That's fine, but I don't know that the planning commission needs to dictate how someone's doing their business. If their customers, they want to provide parking advice to their customers, that's great. I don't know why we would
Yeah,
be
and I think
conditioning them to do
I will
that.
say this has come up in other hearings. You may have been recused because they were in the Barlow, but it has come up, and part of it is one of the things that I've seen happening since COVID is that there's more and more seating outside. We don't require additional parking for outside, but with that further development of outdoor seating and our beautiful climate, there are times when, and not everyone says, "Oh, it's great, I'm going to walk." But if people are using those outdoor seatings at times when, and so that is sort of the 80 seat, inside and outside capacity, it is potentially helpful to at least, hey, here's where parking is located. I think as I noted, when this was originally permitted, it had street parking on both sides. You're allowed to count street parking, but we certainly have gotten complaints about this. And when Comloy went in where Peter Lowell's was because of the issues with Peter Lowell's, so we have received more complaints about parking in that. So I think, to me, signage as a condition is there is a nexus to it. The commission can, in any use permit, look at more or less parking. This is substantially similar, so I wouldn't require more parking, but guidance and signage, I think, would be appropriate just to make sure that everyone is being a good neighbor. And if anyone else, because they don't actually have a dedicated lot other than 2 or 3 spaces, which are actually difficult to know they're there even when you're coming to the site. And so signage for their existing parking, most people wouldn't even know that the ADA parking is around the corner for this particular site. And so this would help, I think, with that particular condition. And I realize that maybe should have been something that was in the past use permit when it was originally permitted. We can't fix that, but we can maybe kind of just help things along that is a pretty low cost for the applicant.
Go ahead.
I'm not sure if this is a question for the applicant, but do you know if any spaces are dedicated for pickup strictly?
I don't know. I would probably defer that to the applicant. So,
all right, thank you.
Okay, if the applicant would like to make a presentation, please step up to the podium. Make sure the little green light is on.
We will address parking. So my name is Tom Rutledge. We're a small group. We're really excited to be in Sebastopol. So I just first want to say thank you for hearing us. We are restaurant people. The 3 guys who will be running this restaurant and who own the restaurant are physically here today. This is a 20-year personal dream for a very big project. So thank you for your time and attention. And for everyone who's going to come up and talk about the things the prior tenants done, give us a chance is going to be my first comment. I want to address parking first because it's been in every single conversation I've overheard about the entire town for all 3 different things we've talked about. If we can't find convenient, safe, and as much parking as possible, we will not make it. So I build our website. I already have the section under our header that's going to show where parking is available within Sebastopol. We had our graphics guy do the map, so you're ahead of the curve on that one. I'm a big fan of the restaurant dining scene here. We go here all the time. I didn't know Comloy had 12 spots until I read the letter that said they have 12 spots. So I am thrilled. I thought they had the 2 outside the restaurant because I couldn't read the little paint. So I am pumped to be able to park and not walk the 3 miles to go eat there going forward. That being said, again, it is our singular biggest concern. If the local town is taking over our neighborhood spot, we are a neighborhood restaurant. We are not opening a fine dining restaurant. We're not opening something that's going to be very expensive. We are here for the community. So if we are upsetting a good portion of the community, especially the people directly behind us, we're not going to be here very long. So like I said, the big thing for us is please give us a chance to solve the problems. Fundamentally, that's what we're looking to do. Again, we are here for the liquor license. I do want to address the seat comment. We aren't expanding the seats. We're reconfiguring the restaurant. Our understanding is a 47, if over 50 seats, must come and talk to you. If it was under 50, we would just get it. So the fact that by simply having the volume of seats that was in the previous restaurant and what's in ours, we have a requirement with the 47. We're only going after a 47 because we enjoy creating cocktails the way we enjoy creating food. We think it's something that's great for the ambience of the restaurant, for people to enjoy. Safe alcohol service and anything else that comes with this. You can overserve beer, you can overserve wine, you can overserve liquor. We have to do everything correctly. That's not really on the table. This is just us wanting to provide something. Frankly, serving distilled spirits is a very expensive process. It's a very expensive license. We have to build a bar. There's just a lot of money that goes into this. I would have loved to have a 41 and not have to talk to anybody about this until we were up front, but it just wasn't what we wanted to provide to our guests as far as what we were doing. So there's going to be comments about, and we're not playing live music. We want background music. If I can't speak to you the way I'm right now, that's what dining rooms need. Go to a dining room that doesn't have music, it's kind of eerie. So we're only asking the same thing, that we're allowed to play not loud music. I appreciate that there were bands and other things going on before. That's not our intention. We will be available to the community. We're not hiding behind something. We're available. I would say the same thing with the parking. I will never make promises I can't defend. If people decide to park someplace they're not supposed to, we will increase our signage as required. We will work with the community to make sure it happens. Fundamentally, we're trying to be good neighbors and a great neighborhood restaurant. So like I said before, if we make people angry, we're not going to be too successful within Sebastopol. So if we're given a shot to do it right, I promise you we will. That doesn't mean so much. We're here for what's actually going to happen. But all of these things are first and foremost. Parking, more than anything, is the thing that keeps up at night. How do we get people into the restaurant is primary. And if they're doing that by driving over people's lawns or whatever things are going to upset the neighborhood, we're equally in trouble. So I hope I get another chance. Is that part of the process? If people have questions, do I get to address those as well? Great. So like I said, we are not changing what happened at Flavors. In fact, we're so thankful that people have been so supportive in the little bit of news that's been shared. We've been very much into doing this right. I think a few of you, especially John Jay, has received so many phone calls and emails to make sure we're checking all the boxes and doing all the right things. I'm sure he's going to be excited when this process is over and that we can continue going and getting this thing open and serving all of you, and hope we do see all of you there. So I hope I addressed most of those concerns.
Yeah, great. If you could just stay there in case there's any questions
Please.
from the commission. Anyone have questions of the applicant? All right, and have a seat, and we'll ask you if we have if anything comes up. We'll have you come back. Okay, this will be an opportunity for members of the public to wish to speak on this item. Please step up to the podium if you're in the room, and you'll have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nancy Moorhead. Whoa, moved. I live on 561 Ellis Court, which is directly across from where this project is. And yes, I need to speak about parking, but in my mind, the way it's related to this alcohol permit is that you're talking about people of maybe a slightly impaired leaving your restaurant and they park so close to my house because there are no sidewalks, there are no curbs, there's no way to keep them away. And I have a huge rock garden and I'm previous grounds manager. The JC gardening is pretty important to me, and I can't tell you how hard it is to, they just hit things, you know? So that's my connection with why parking is important in a person who might be impaired by drinking alcohol at this restaurant and then crash their car into my property. Anyway, that was what I wanted to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone on Zoom? Not seeing Okay, there's some people on Zoom. Anyone on Zoom wish to make a comment on this item? Okay, seeing no one on Zoom, we'll come back to the room. So come on up to the podium, please.
Hi, my name is Robert Nissenbaum. I own the 7385 Healdsburg Avenue property next door to Flavors and now the new Campanella restaurant. Let me first say that I'm very supportive of the new restaurant. I think Sebastopol needs a good Italian restaurant or an additional good Italian restaurant. And it's a good location. We have, when Flavors was there, so as has been stated, we have in our space for Comloy and our other tenants in business there, we have 12 parking spaces for the commercial building. We have 24 residential parking spaces. When Flavors was there, I think, you guys can correct me, I think there's just 3 spots that parking on your site, or
There's a total of 7.
7? Okay, well then there's 7. Anyway, we had a lot of Flavors traffic pulling into our lot. Parking not only in our commercial spaces, but in our residential spaces. We try to mark off the lot as best as possible, but we don't have it gated off or anything, so people will pull down into the residential spaces. We do have it painted as best we can with red paint and everything. It's private parking and everything, but not everybody adheres to that. So we'll cooperate as best as possible to get the best signage we can. And of course, I believe you guys will help in any way you can with your customers. With Flavors, I mean, so we did have people in our residents complained, maybe it was just happened normally. Maybe it was people, who have a few drinks and then come over there. But we had a number of instances where customers from Flavors were abusive too, because we have specific spaces which people, have for the residential parking, and they would show up in our space and, we don't want to tow cars. We have towing signs. We don't want to be monitoring our parking lot for towing. And we certainly don't want any conflicts with our residents from people. And it happened. We had abusive people with women and other people. So it's a concern for us. That's all. I trust that we'll work with you guys as best as possible to solve this. But we came here just so that this dialogue is open, with the city, and we know what's going on, and everybody can cooperate as best as possible. But it is an issue. It was a big issue with Flavors. And it's also been commented when Flavors started, it was before the bicycle lanes. And we tried to tell people in the city about this bicycle lane problem. If you take away the parking, then we're going to have a lot more parking problems.
Okay, thank you. Time is up. Thanks. Anyone else on Zoom want to make a comment? All right, we'll come back to the room. Please come to the podium.
Hello, my name is William Iberti, and I live in 479 Florence Lofts. I've been there for, 14 or 15 years now. And anyway, just a little backdrop. So you earlier were talking about a B&B permit and 3 bedrooms, to need 3 car spaces or 5 and et cetera. We have a restaurant with, I think they have 80 seats. And even if it's not a capacity, say it's only a 60 on a good night, that's 20 or 30 cars, okay, with 7 parking places. How does that not just be a glaring nexus problem of just trying to get a square peg in a round hole. So maybe that day is past. It seems like it is, and this is just where we are. So I can tell you, my place where my kitchen sink where I prepare food is the window, looks out over the parking lot and right at the restaurant, and it's 25 yards from their patio. So I see exactly what happens and exactly what will happen. I appreciate everything you said. I mean, you guys sound great, and I love Italian food. I'm an Italian for 75 years, so I just think it's the wrong place. But that said, what they will do, no matter what the signs say, because there's no alternative unless they park at, Hot Monk parking lot, or the real public place is Sprouse Ritz or whatever it's called. That's where people park, I think. But at any rate, they'll just come in, they'll look for a place, they'll pull into our parking lot, and they'll just, kind of hover there, and then they'll pull into a space, and they'll figure it out by the signs, or they won't, or they think they're privileged. And then they'll drive to the end of the lot, and they'll pull into another place and make a U-turn, and then the next car will come in. And that's how it goes all night long. It's just a cluster thingadoodle. And they just keep coming in. There's nowhere to park, and they just pour in and pour out. And if I don't know if you guys are having to-go food, possibly. So the to-go people park in the fire lane. There's on our driveway, there's about a 3 or 4 foot red area, all diagonal, and they just park there and hover while significant other goes and gets, the takeout food all night long. So these are real things that just happen all the time. I don't want to lose my 3 minutes, because I think all I'm saying is sort of like comments that don't mean much, because we're past that, it seems like. But the outside music is when it's like the soundtrack of my life. No one should be able to tell me what I have to listen to from 4 till 10, 6 nights a week. And that's how it is with outside music. Please don't allow it. Could you read number 11 in your 8 section exhibits? It specifically says you're recommending no outside music, period.
Okay,
I
we'll
just
take
wonder if the owners would be amenable to that.
We can take a look at that, but yeah, your 3 minutes is up.
Okay.
Thank you. So anyone else would like to make a comment on this item? All right, seeing no one, I will close public comment. Bring it back to the commission for any further comments or discussion. Anyone like to start?
I just wonder if we could maybe address some of the public comments that were brought up by maybe the applicant.
So specifically, most of them had to do with parking, which we will talk about that.
Oh yeah, the outside music or anything like.
So okay, we'll take a look at that.
I think the applicant might want to address that.
My one comment on the music is we are not doing amplified music. Our request is to play something on background music. If we can't talk over it, it doesn't work in a restaurant. As I mentioned, the 11 is a question for us as well, because it says it's a little bit ambiguous. It says music or acoustic music, and then it says the doors must be closed. So it does. And so my question to that, our understanding of that was the live acoustic music inside only. But I do want to address for the clarification to not allow us to open a door to the patio because we have background music playing, as any restaurant would, is the antithesis of being hospitable and having a nice ambiance to a place. The other thing to the patio that I would like to call out is what was there had very little plant life. It had very little sound blocking. It had very little coverage over it. We are going to be changing that, and there will be more coverage, more sound deadening around it. If we sat here in silence for 30 seconds, silence is an odd ambient tone, especially within a restaurant. We are not going to be blasting music. I do not want to dictate the soundtrack of your life. I would like you to come by and DJ with us if that was preferable. But the comment would be, we do want to provide a basic ambiance. And I'm only asking so much as there's nearly a dozen eateries in 2 square blocks of this location. We're not asking for special privilege. We are just asking for the standards that are met by the people down the road. So for 11, we are hoping to play out of our very small speakers on the patio, ambient music for people to dine and hear as part of any other restaurant that's in the area. Kamloi doesn't have to close their big doors. We don't want them to. I think it's a great restaurant. It's super fun. Nobody down the road has to close their doors. We're just asking for the same privilege. Does that address that question?
It's not really a dialogue, so sorry. Yeah, thank you for that response. Is there any questions from the commission about that?
Should I stay in case there's others, or?
Sure, you can stay in case does anyone have any other comments or thoughts they'd like to share?
Should the applicant mentioned sound barriers and so forth? Would that be something that should be added in? But it sounds like,
I mean,
sounds like everything else is.
We're going to meet the sound code.
We have a noise ordinance that people are subject to, and I agree that we don't. I don't know why. Go ahead.
There's a couple of things. One is anyone is allowed to have something as long as this meets the noise ordinance. So, and that is, there are other things that can be done. And yes, you're right. One of the strategies from an acoustic perspective, having worked with the Hop Monk for years with their issues, one is to make sure you have enough things that baffle the noise. So it's not echoing around the hard surfaces, smaller speakers, more distributed so that you get, it's good acoustic design, right? The other thing is because it looks like there's, there is literally, yes, the residence is right connected to the patio across that parking area. On the other side, that's the parking lot for the real estate. And so if you were actually able to, yes, position the speakers so they're going in the other direction. And many of you may recall, we talked about this with the barbecue place at some point too, as just a really easy solution to kind of, and I would encourage you to speak with the neighbors and kind of test things out.
100%.
Go ahead, Debbie.
I'm just wondering if we should maybe clarify this since it is ambiguous in 11 so that they're not back here with the neighbors. That you like that idea?
Very much.
I think we should just clarify it. I'd hate to see you back here and neighbors. So if we clarify it, it is what it is, and we save you a trip. So one of my confusions about this is that they're not asking for anything other than regular ambient, music outside. If I was sitting outside my own home and I was listening to ambient music, the commission wouldn't be
correct.
involved.
As long as you're meeting the noise ordinance and
right.
you're not,
So as long as they're making the noise ordinance, couldn't we change this to, because that's
all
fine
we're
with
asking
you,
for.
right? So couldn't we change this that they're allowed to have outside music as long as they're meeting the noise ordinance, and then whatever the hours are that we're allowed to have just regular music, which is probably within your.
Absolutely.
yes, that is something the commission, and just looking at that condition, it's not approved as an entertainment venue. That's not what they're asking or requesting. Dancing or live music not permitted. That's fine. Incidental use, incidental use, recorded background music and occasional live acoustic music may be conducted inside the establishment only. And all doors and windows are closed during that activity. And it may be that the outdoor, you could add a sentence that says outdoor music may be played as long as it meets the noise ordinance.
Yeah, the ambiguity is, I'm sorry.
I was just saying, can we strike the sentence about all doors and windows shall be closed during any such activity?
Well, I'd want to strike the live music component of it at that point then, because I think that is.
Well, that sounds fine. Sounds like you don't
if
plan on
that's
live
okay
music.
with you.
So
Yes, it's
if
not
we could
allowed.
strike the live music, and then all doors and windows shall be closed.
As an incidental use, recorded background music may be conducted at the establishment, and then strike all doors and windows shall be closed.
And
Does that sound good? Because it's just at the establishment. It's
At
not
the-
defining inside versus
yeah,
outside.
you could say at the establishment in compliance with the noise
In compliance
ordinance.
with the noise ordinance. Beautiful. Yep. Did you get that, John?
Someone get that?
I will state it again, just so it's clear to everybody with what, Paul, it sounds like you might be proposing is, the establishment is not approved as an entertainment venue. Dancing or live music shall not be permitted on the premises without prior city approval. And we say that because you can get a special use permit when you get to your 10th anniversary, kind of a thing, right? As an incidental use, recorded background music may be utilized subject to the noise ordinance.
Thank you.
The
Perfect.
and then I would strike the all doors and windows as Chairs Fritz is suggesting. I would also leave the police department or planning director may require termination or modification of such activity, because that allows us at a staff level to deal with it and not have to come back to you all.
I think that's fine.
Thank you.
And then while we're doing this, is there also something that needs to be here to save the whole parking thing back and forth also, like just, or leave it and
I promise we're going to put a lot more time into solving that
Yeah,
than
I mean,
anybody here.
Is there,
Did we
Should
have
we
a,
leave
is there
a-
a condition about parking?
I was wondering where it would go.
I was actually asking John if we have a good neighbor policy, because we often have that. But when we have the specifics of it, it looks like the placement of bottles out in recycle bins, not after 9 p.m. kind of a
Sold.
thing.
Yeah.
maybe Sebastopol's ready for valet.
Well, the next application has that as part of its
I'll-
approval. So.
I'll get the business license. It is a wildly expensive proposition. Yeah.
Oh yeah, all that insurance, huh? So I would say just add this, a 1A, applicant shall provide good neighbor signage regarding available parking or available public
In
parking.
the plans already. So
Yeah, it sounds like they're already there.
Yeah.
That's
So
fine.
I think we kind of like closed all the loopholes, so we're not, yeah.
I appreciate your time.
Anything else? Do I have a motion?
I make a motion, we approve as per the modifications or clarifications that were made.
I'll second that.
All right. Any further discussion? All right, let's go for a vote then.
Okay, Commissioner Ottinger,
Aye.
Commissioner Burns,
Yes,
Commissioner Fernandez.
Aye.
And Chair Fritz.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
except for before you guys leave, do we get to see a menu? Really? Can we? No, I was kidding, but I'll take it. I do. I was.
It is so early.
Wait,
Please
have
don't put it
you-
on Twitter.
Okay, but do you guys have a restaurant anywhere else, or is this your
This
only
is the only
location?
Campanella in existence.
Okay.
So this is just 20 years of our brains individually working on something. But again, no social media, please.
No,
Okay.
no. I was only teasing, but thank you.
All right. Well, thank you.
But not yet. We've got lots of construction.
I was gonna say, with that, when is your proposed open date?
As soon as I put that in the email, it'll be 3 months. Yeah, so fall.
Good.
And again, this is early. Please.
Sure, certainly. Well, good luck. Thank
Okay,
you.
and so just as a reminder, so this does approve the alcohol use permit with the additional conditions, and thank you very much for that good neighbor policy work. This is subject to the 7-day appeal period, which would be an appeal by next Tuesday, and then the approval is final. You can, at your own risk, go ahead and move forward with your building permit, because that has nothing to do with the alcohol permit versus a restaurant. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 6D.
Yeah, we'll be seeing you.
6828 Depot Street. This is a development agreement for the Hotel Sebastopol. And
Thank
when
you, and
have
we're just
us-
going to wait for
Oh, I'm
Vice Chair
sorry,
Hanley to
yes.
get back.
We have someone
John's going to go
missing.
grab him right now.
Can I just have a 1-minute break?
Sure.
No, I'm, yeah, the hotel, I guess, yeah. I'm not going to talk with John, I just kind of pointed out a couple of some office buildings that have excess parking that you may be able to work out some sort of green up there.
Yeah, he's gonna walk around yesterday. Okay. He's got Sunday and see where there's a guy's house.
Oh, yeah, I know that one, yeah. I don't constantly there, not open. Wait, are you talking about?
Across the street from the church. From Olive.
Oh, the one on the upslope side.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't spoken to anyone, so this is just us doing cognizant to see if there are spots that we can rent.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking of the one that's. right
Oh,
next
I
to
know
Mount
them.
Stanford.
Okay, you know, I actually, my friend came to
This is right next to it. I think it's.
That's the old.
But I think that's a great idea to use that.
Hopefully, we'll get people to parse it. I like to go somewhere. So.
It's funny, in other countries, I feel like.
Oh, we do. Okay, we have not much longer left before we have to get out of this room.
Thank you,
So
Chair.
let's move us along to item 6D. Yep, we're all back. 6828 Depot Street, Hotel Sebastopol Development Agreement. With staff
Thank you,
report,
Chair
please.
Fritz. And we do have the applicant represented by Danielle Petrone. He is on Zoom. I'll give a brief staff report about this project, which I know has been of high interest of lots of folks in the city. So just as background, there are a pretty large number of entitlements that went through. This project has gone through. It was initially approved in 2017. They did have some additional design review amendments, public art approvals, lot mergers of actually 2 different lot mergers. The most recent approval of theirs was a lot merger required by PG&E because they have solar on the parking lot, but the main electric is on the hotel site across the street. In order to trench over and do that, they needed to merge the 2 lots, and that was approved in December of this year. So the developer has been working pretty diligently, moving things forward. They, just to be frank, just like everybody, they got caught up in the whole COVID hospitality crash. Things have been coming back, and I'll let them talk a little bit further on that. But what they have applied for is what's called a development agreement, and this is actually in our municipal code. It's also a specific part of state law, just like a subdivision. You need to be consistent with both state law and the city's code. Larry McLaughlin and our outside legal counsel, as well as myself, have been working on a draft agreement, which there will be some changes to this draft. This is not the formal hearing for the development agreement. That will be after this. But as you all know, I'm leaving the city at the end of April. Since I'm the person with all the background, I really wanted to make sure you had a chance to ask some background questions. So, and so did John. So, so development agreements are basically the intent of those is for the developer to have certainty in their entitlements. This is a little unusual. Usually it happens where the entitlements aren't necessarily approved yet, but it's something that is both the city and the applicant is interested in. In this case, the project is known and approved. Just as a brief description, it is a 66-room hotel. It has it's actually like 3 or 4 buildings on the block across from the plaza, the 6828 Depot Street, with parking across this brown street. That is valet parking with solar carports on it. The hotel site itself has a hotel with exercise, spa, lobby, etc. 66 rooms. They do have artist studios facing Depot Street with hostel rooms above. That was part of their community engagement and the desire to have some more affordable rooms for younger folks. There is along Petaluma Avenue, there's both a restaurant with a second story kind of meeting center, a second story where the NEDCON artwork will go above, and then sort of across from Screamy Mimi's at the Depot Street, Petaluma Avenue corner, there's retail components. So it's a pretty large, complex project that they have. They are asking for a extension. The development agreement was basically asking for an extension of their entitlements as well as their building permit for 2 years. Staff is recommending 3 years, just to make sure that they have time to button it up. The intent is to incorporate a fee agreement, which the city council had approved in 2018. We do have a different council now. They will get a chance to look at this and make any modifications. This does need to be approved by the city council, but it requires a planning commission hearing. The way development agreements work is you actually have an enabling ordinance, and that ordinance is subject to the legal ramifications of it doesn't go into effect for 30 days. It's subject to some various, rather than appeal, some other components of it. It's not an ordinance that gets sort of written up in the zoning ordinance. It's just an enabling ordinance, and that's the state mechanism, state law for how that works. So again, this would extend their entitlements, incorporate the previous fee agreement the council approved in 2018. And in addition, it would also incorporate the requirement that the developer maintain the site until such time that they start construction in good order. And as you know, in the past, they had the NEDCON super exhibit, I'll call it, on the site. They do have it fenced. We have been working with them when they've had issues with homelessness on the parking lot site in particular. And they've done some, I think, additional fencing or are planning to do that to work on that. Additionally, if they were to start construction, because this does happen, go bankrupt, they would have to put back the site into its natural state so that it's not a sort of half-built site abandoned in the middle of your downtown. And so those are the intent of the development agreement. There are no amendments being requested to any of the actual use permits, design review, or other entitlements. The fee agreement in general is, they did pay all the planning entitlements and the building permit fees. The building permit fee itself exceeds $500,000. The fee agreement reduced some of the plan check fees that's already completed, so that's not really part of this at any rate anyway, and reduced the water and sewer connection fees by 35%. It also provided for a deferral of impact fees for parks, traffic, and the housing linkage fee. Those are attached to the report that is that actual fee agreement is attached. The deferral would be to either 1 year after occupancy, and then payment of or 75% occupancy for 3 months. So if they go gangbusters first year around 6 months, they've been at 75% for 3 months already, then they would start that repayment. The repayment would be monthly installment over 5 years. what we do as a city for that is we actually record that on the property. So it would run with the land. Were they to sell that, it would still be the responsibility of the next owner to continue payment of that, just like just like any sort of loan that you have that doesn't get paid off. So I think I'll stay there at that point and ask for any questions. I think most people know about the hotel. And so this is just a mechanism for understanding how and when this might happen in the future.
Thank you. Any questions, staff? I have a question about the report. On the last page, this is Exhibit A to Memorandum of Agreement that seems to have nothing to do with this project. And refers to a parcel in the county of Solano.
It probably is.
This is very last
and
page.
I apologize for that. That's probably something that just got scanned in at an odd.
And the page before that is a notary kind of notarization page, also from the county of Solano. And so there's a couple of just random things that are attached to the staff end of the staff report, it seems.
Yeah, I don't think
Like
the exhibit B is that.
There's an exhibit A. It says list of exhibits. And there's an exhibit A page, and there's no.
Yeah,
exhibit.
that is supposed to be the legal description of the property.
Yeah,
and that looks like that was in the draft, just an incorrect attachment. It should be the legal description of the actual property, and so we'll correct that on the next. Thank you.
And yeah, the fee deferral agreement is not in here either as the exhibit, but again, I know this. I realize this isn't the final, but just for clarification in the future.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I was doing this right as I was trying to drive back here. So my apologies.
Okay, if there's no questions, if the applicant wants to make any statements, you can feel free, unmute yourself.
I think Carrie, well, first off, I'll say, hey, everyone, I'm Daniele Petrone. I think I've met a few of you. We first appeared in front of this very commission, as Carrie mentioned, way back in 2017. I think at that point, if you were to ask me if I considered myself to be young, I would have said yes. Not sure what my answer would be today. But as Carrie mentioned, it's been a long process for us, and we've been, dealt some external factors that were clearly unanticipated between fires, floods, the pandemic, and our current difficult lending market. But as Carrie said, we're making every effort that we can, every step of the way, trying to move things forward. We've moved forward with our Caltrans and PG&E applications, which are no small feat. They require lots of time and therefore money. And we remain very committed to this project. And so I'm sure you've heard updates from us before, and as you saw in our letter that's included in the packet, we are at a place where we have construction lending in place. It's just complicated lending because it entails some federal funds, which come with all sorts of hoops to jump through and requirements. And it's kind of a nebulous process. And so generating an accurate timeline for when the loan will actually close has been very difficult, even for the agency itself, right? So yeah, I mean, I'm happy to answer any questions about our plans, the process for us going forward. If it's on timeline, I'll do my best. But again, it's hard for us to really say when things will be buttoned up in terms of financing.
All right, thank you. So what do you need from us at this point?
So what we're asking is if you have any questions, concerns, things you feel should be modified in sort of the draft agreement, basically, that we would be bringing that plus a draft ordinance back to you for a formal hearing. And that would include a resolution of recommendation to the city council to approve it. So again, also if there are things that you would like to be included in that resolution, that you can that you know about now, then that would be helpful to understand as well. And that way you can draft that up.
Okay. Does anyone have any concerns or questions about what was presented, or we all good? Okay, Kathy.
Only if 3 years is long enough. I mean, it's been a lot of years.
So they've requested,
You can't
as you
make it
can
up.
see in their letter, they did request 1 to 2 years.
Yeah.
I think at that point, the building code would be so outdated that our building official would start to have concerns. So that's actually, there are some things.
Is this the same development agreement that was already in place and it's just being extended for 3 years, or it's a new one?
No, it's a new one. What was in place before wasn't capital D, capital A under state law and our code a development agreement. It was simply a fee deferral agreement. So it didn't extend any, they had literally, so it was approved in 2017. I started with the city August 2018. It was literally like October 2018. So it was literally like a year into their approval, into their 3-year original approval. And they were asking for the fee, the impact fees to be, over time and that kind of stuff, which is not atypical. We did that with the Barlow as well for their original build out. And so that was the only thing that was a component of it at that time. And we'll definitely include that for you in the next go around so you can see what was in that. But it was basically the factors that were written in the report of the reducing the fees for those water sewer impacts and the building check, plan check, and then deferring the impact fees until after they were open for a year or so.
Okay, thank you. And did the city attorney prepare this?
Yes, the city attorney has did prepare this. And actually, it was the city attorney and outside counsel because we don't do development agreements in the city very often. The
that was
last
gonna
time
be
we
my
did
next
one,
point. Yeah, 'cause
yes,
we don't review those either.
correct. The last time that I'm aware of that the city did a development agreement was for the O'Reilly property in about 2000 or 1998-ish. So we don't have that kind of complex development often going on in town. This is still a pretty simple development agreement because it's not saying, hey, we're going to work with you for a development that we don't quite know what it's going to look like or anything.
Right.
It really is more, the certainty of the time extension. The city knows certainly from an economic development, the TOTs will be significant to the city.
Yep.
And that will help with the financing. So it is, and it's something that the city has already approved basically.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. It sounds like no one has any specific things they want to see added or removed. So I think.
Is there sort of a straw poll of our, or a motion of support for us to prepare a resolution?
Yeah, I'd certainly say I'm ready. I want to see this done. So if they need more time to figure it out.
It's a regular agenda item, so it would be great to get a motion to direct staff to prepare the ordinance and
bring it back.
Final drafts and bring them back.
Okay. Anyone want to make a motion to that effect?
I move we direct staff to move forward on this.
All right.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Let's take a vote.
Okay. Commissioner Ottinger?
Yes.
Commissioner Burns?
Yes.
Commissioner Fernandez?
Aye.
Vice Chair Henley?
Aye.
And Chair Fritz?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, hopefully you'll get to break ground sooner rather than later.
And
We're all
just
waiting.
for the general public, we will notice this again it will be a more formal public hearing next time for the ordinance. And so that'll get the same notification that is required for any public hearing.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Moving on to item 7A, which is the Planning Commission and the Design Review and Tree Board potential merger.
So this is a item that City Council has directed staff to consider with all of our boards and commissions. They are looking at budgetary options and kind of throwing everything out there. So this one is a consideration of combining the Planning Commission and Design Review and Tree Board to one body that would meet twice a month still, likely at the same time period and day of the week. We have had some initial discussions with the Design Review Board already. We got some feedback from them. So we are here today to get some feedback from the Planning Commission as far as their thoughts to this, as well as any concerns that you may have for the combination of the two, so that we can report back to council on our findings.
Is there any, go ahead, Kathy.
Has there been any discussion about the makeup of that board? How many people would be on it and whether there would be an alternate?
Yes, so that was one of the questions that the Design Review Board did bring up, is that both these boards are consist of 5 members, and the Design Review Board does have an alternate member. We kind of discussed the potential makeup of what the combined board would be. Would that be 7 members? Would it be stay at the 5 members? I know the Planning Commission had difficulties in the past getting up to 7 members in total, but if there's a combination of the two, it might be a little bit easier. The other portion of it was if there was a combination of the two, and we did add 2 members, that 2 of those, it be written in the ordinance that at least 2 members of the Planning Commission be design professionals in some capacity, whether that's an architect, engineer, landscape designer, planner, anything in that regard, to provide that kind of professional experience that, you know, the Design Review Board does have those strict requirements for their makeup of the board. So I hope that answers that question.
Was there any discussion of someone, one seat being outside of the city limits, but not having a business inside the city? That's my seat.
Yeah, I don't.
just curious, because I think it's really useful in
Sure.
getting people who are very much involved in the community and have history with it.
Sure. Yeah, I don't believe there wasn't any discussion into changing the way that the current makeup of the Planning Commission is. It would mostly be if there was a combination and 2 seats were added, you know, the 2 additional seats would be some sort of design professional aspect.
Right, and just to note, when the DRB discussed it, their rules are a little bit different in that you don't need to, what are the rules for the DRB?
It's not a
John's a staff liaison, so he knows this more than I
a
do.
resident, but you do need to have either a license, whether that's a architect, designer. The other category B, I believe, is a contractor or a retired contractor, so something in the field. And then category C is a combination of A and B, which category A is that licensed design professional. And then category D is an alternate, so that could be any one of the 3 categories. So there's no requirement that, like the Planning Commission has, that you know, be a resident and have own a business or any outside of city limits, but within the school district that you currently hold. So
Yeah, so they don't really focus on that since they have all of the different professional classifications that they have. It's sort of enough for them, I think, in their discussion.
And so a related comment about that is that that's one of the reasons why the Planning Commission used to be larger, because it did bring citizens in from the community who were established in the committee, but weren't always professionals or real estate agents and all those other professions that, you know, tend to get locked into the business that they do, so that their volunteer job is really an extension of their professions. And I would not like to see that happen to a Planning Commission group, that everyone were a professional or associated with their businesses in town. but that it did have that broader representation, which is what, I mean, Sebastopol is a small town, but we all live together. We're all citizens here, and we worry about the parking and those things I think are important in a small town. It's part of how our community works. So I hope that the council is on that same plate today, but they may not be.
Any,
Yeah, it'd be helpful is if there are any other examples from other communities where they're wearing those type of hats, planning commission and design review. And then just from a procedural, would that be where someone comes in for a permit? So then that would be issued and then you would discuss the design, or they would have to come back. I'm just wondering how that would be handled.
So for the first part of your question, as far as reaching out to other groups, I have reached out to a couple. I know Samantha Hauser from City Ventures is a planning commission member in her city, and they actually have a combined design review board and planning commission. So I'm hopeful that I'll have a discussion with her in the future to see how they operate. I know that it does kind of relieve some of the extra stuff from their council. So, projects are kind of streamlined a little bit quicker and stuff like that. As far as the procedural stuff goes, currently, right now, for a permit or entitlement that needs to go to all three boards, it goes to planning commission first, city council, and then comes back to the design review board. So if there was a combination of the two, that design review board meeting would get kind of coupled in with the planning commission meeting at the very beginning. So I know previous members of the design review board that I've interacted with and current ones have always felt a little awkward receiving a project at the tail end when it's already been approved by planning commission and city council, and there's very limited kind of things that they can suggest or add. So I think adding that design review portion of it earlier on would be helpful for both the applicant and then also staff and the boards and commissions. So you don't feel kind of bad making a suggestion when project's been in the works for 2 or 3 years.
Okay, and I assume if this goes through that our compensation will be doubled?
So I'll chime in on a couple thoughts because I have actually worked in communities where there's no DRB and there's design review, but it goes to the planning commission. And so, it's not a huge difference. Sometimes you do get more, although right now we have 2 design professionals out of 5. I've seen where there's maybe 3 professionals out of 5. And the others are, and I will say, I very much appreciate having both the citizen perspective and the business perspective, business owners, not design professionals, and the design professionals all in the same. This is just the beginning of a discussion. And so I think that feedback is really helpful to kind of, from Kathy, thank you, in terms of kind of a mix of stuff. I would not anticipate, nor would I ever recommend an 11-person planning commission. That would basically be like around the room, and any applicant would be completely overwhelmed. And you're right, the conversations would be just to get through everybody. It would be unmanageable. I do think it would probably be more than 5. So would it be 7 with an alternate again, or something like that? Would it have is there some way of having a design subcommittee of some sort for preliminary review or something? There's all sorts of ways that could potentially work, but 7 to 9, I would say, but Chair Fritz?
I have very strong
tell you
opinions
have a
about
comment.
I have very strong opinions about this,
We
but
know
I want to ask Vice Chair Hanley to speak first if he has any comments.
I have comments and questions. So the first question is, my wife serves on the design review board. So can we both serve on the same board/committee?
I don't know. I know she brought that up in her interview for
okay.
reappointment to the DRB. And
Okay.
I think she said, I think one of us would need to resign, but that's certainly something we can check with the city attorney on.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Just a
I
procedural thing.
I mean, I kind of don't
curious
feel like
about.
it should, I don't feel like it should disqualify you.
Right.
It's maybe unusual, but I don't, well, yeah. Jen,
Maybe we
can you
could
jot
switch
that down
off
for
as
Larry?
one-
Okay.
one at
That's
one at a time.
more technical than we can handle here.
Okay, no worries. I'm all for streamlining the application development process. And I think having combined meetings where an applicant can actually get all the information they need in one go and respond to it in one go is a good idea. I think it would be even better if then they could roll into a city council meeting on the same night and get everything done. Because often the lag time between meetings, there isn't actually serious forward motion on a project. It's just waiting. And I say, if not now, then when? Let's get it all done as quickly as we can, so that applicants leave the room knowing what they've got to do next, or if there's nothing to do next. So I guess that's my overarching comment. I like the idea of there being 7 and some alternates, so that we've always got a quorum, so that people who are on a trajectory know that they can hang their hat on a meeting happening. I had one other thing I was going to say, which has just slipped out of my mind. It'll come back to me. Anyway, go for it. Oh, I know what it was. I'm sorry. Just to agree with Kathy that I think it's important, and I said this as maybe one of the professionals on the team, that there are non-professionals, so that we do get a range of experiences that represent the full community and not just coming at it from a technical position or a business position, etc. That's my comments.
Go ahead, Debbie.
Yeah, I feel like it's really important in our community to realize that, the population that is in the Sebastopol proper is really much broader of who knows this community. So having someone who's not I'm not either, I just happen to be a business owner, but I think, I've seen over the years I've been here, we've had a really hard time keeping people and getting people to apply for jobs, it feels like a job, for these volunteer positions has been really difficult. And if we did open it up more, I think that would be really helpful. But one of the things that concerns me, I agree with everything you said about, I'm from New York, so let's get the job done, right? So, getting it all streamlined and all that, I agree with it. But I also am really worried about the amount of work that it would put on the same amount of people and how long the meetings would be. And if we'd start losing people from staff to volunteers to, we've just seen this happen over the years. So one of my concerns is if our meetings the city, if our meeting is going to go till 11, 12, how do we fit all this in? And, what does that mean for us is a big concern. And I'm also concerned about Carrie leaving. And, one of the Sebastopol rumors, because we're literally as small as 1 degree of separation, is that they might not, replace you, but there might be some just more consultants. And that just feels like, there's so many moving parts right now that I just don't know how much more time we can all devote, we can all give this. So that would be my concern. However, I do agree with it would be professionally better to have it in one place and get it done and get the ball rolling. So.
Yeah, and I can, from a staff perspective, for some of especially the stuff that doesn't go to city council, and unfortunately we do need to notice for city council meetings if it's not very many, but the subdivision and there's a couple entitlements that require city council, mostly the subdivision. No, CEQA goes to whichever level, so it would be here if it's just, yeah. But we can't notice because we don't know what you're going to decide. So that's the only thing there. But I will say there are times that it is a little awkward for staff to have to write about a subdivision map or a project that has a use permit, but it has a big design component. And in some ways, it's a little bit more efficient to put those all in one report, do one notice instead of 2, and do one meeting set of minutes and all that kind of stuff. So there is some streamlining from a staff perspective for some of those permits. So it would actually probably help staff a little bit, and certainly the amount of time we spend in meetings would be significantly less in prep and travel and setup and all those types of things. So I think for staff, it's, part of the reason the council and the city manager is looking at this is the staff time. So.
Go ahead.
Has a sort of cost analysis been run on what the potential savings might be?
You know, the meetings themselves in terms of the tech support is fairly minimal. It's in terms of the staff time, again, we would still have to write the reports. I would say it's probably a 25% savings, just off the top of my head, per application, just in terms of the staff time.
So I have some concerns about the combined boards, just because I have, as an architect, gone in front of those combined boards and found them very frustrating. And I think, so one of the frustrations is just that oftentimes there are no design professionals on a planning commission. And like when you're talking about design, like it helps to be able to talk about design in a designer kind of way. And not that other people's opinions don't matter, but it just is a frustration. And I have a lot of frustrations about the design review process in general, because as an architect, pretty much when you come to design review, the project is designed. You've spent a lot of time and energy and your client's money on coming up with a design review package, because you basically need a done design. You have to have site plans and elevations and floor plans and colors and materials and light fixtures and landscape plans and irrigation plans. I mean, it's a lot to put together. And I feel like the process doesn't really work, because now you spent, I mean, a big project, you just spend $100,000, $200,000 on design review package. And then the design review board wants you to change things or revise things. And I know we have like a concept design and but it's not a very effective process. And I had a conversation with John about a very different design review process. Katati does something similar to what I sort of envision, and they don't really have a design review board per se. They have basically an on-call architect. And so when they get an application, they send it to an on-call architect who then reviews the application for design review purposes and makes sure it complies with objective design standards and things like that. And then that just basically gets processed as part of the staff report as gets to the planning commission as basically a recommendation that, yes, this does or does not meet our objective design standards, and therefore, from a design standpoint, it is approved. And it sort of takes, there's no real board kind of making a determination about a design project. And I think I would just like to have a bigger conversation about this if we're talking about changing our design review process, not just say, we want to change our design review process by just throwing the design review board into the planning commission's responsibilities. Like, I feel like we should take an opportunity to really think about how to do this. And I'll just, and then taking a step back, if we were to combine, I agree. I think there should be sort of set aside seats for designers on the planning commission, similar to what they do in the design review board. And I would say it should be 3 of 5 or 4 of 7 or whatever it is. I think it should be a majority of people should have some design experience personally. But having said that, I would like to propose that we have like a subcommittee of maybe a couple of us and a couple of design review board members that sort of talk about ways that this might work. Because I think it's an opportunity to really rethink the design review process and make it a much more productive process for everyone involved. Like, I really think that it should happen much sooner in a much more informal way, like not have this huge list of requirements that have to be submitted, but keep it to, look, if you just want to bring in a site plan because you're trying to start working on a project and you're doing a site plan, just bring us a site plan to the smaller committee, talk it through, and it would just be much more effective time for feedback as an architect than at the end of the process. Because it's really hard to take a lot of, at the end of the process, you're like, okay, I can change this material. I won't do board and batten, I'll do horizontal siding, or I'll, it's just like small, you can't like wholesale change it at that point. It'd be really difficult and expensive to wholesale change something. So I don't think it serves the city's purposes. I don't think it serves the developer's purposes. or the architect's purposes, the way it's done now. There's just opportunities for little tweaks here and there, basically, at the end of the process. And I think it would be much more effective to have it earlier. And I think that, the way Katati does it, it's not really a public hearing. It sort of happens at the staff level and this kind of design consultant person. And some people may have concerns about, well, we need to have a public process. And, we have the planning commission, we have public meetings, so we'd always have that. But in my opinion, the only people that come to design review board, members of the public that come to design review board meetings are people that don't want the project to happen. And it's just another opportunity to stop the project from happening. It's not really an opportunity for them to make constructive comments on the design. Like, I don't think I've ever been in a design review board hearing where a member of the public has had actual design related comments. It's usually there's not enough parking, it's too tall, it's too many units, and those kinds of comments, which is really more directed towards planning commission. That's what you should be telling the planning commission, because that's what we're deciding. It doesn't have really anything to do with the architecture. It's not usually, I don't like craftsman, or I don't like modern, or I don't, whatever it is. So I don't really have a concern about not being a public process, because we still have the planning commission would be a public process, and the design, I think, should be something separate. But anyway.
Thank you.
I
do want to
other
make
people
sure,
coming into the room.
and I do want to make sure we have time for public comment.
Yes.
So if you could open that, we can
Okay,
do that
well,
real
we'll
quick,
open
'cause
this
I
for
do-
public comment. If anyone from the public would like to make a comment on the proposed design review planning commission combination, go ahead, Cal.
And I do want to remind everyone, this is a first general discussion. This will not be the last time.
I'm going to eviscerate everything right now because, no, I'm just kidding. Good afternoon, Chair Fritz, commissioners and staff. Callum Weeks, Policy Director, Generation Housing. Thank you so much, first and foremost, for holding this discussion. It's a really important conversation, and it's a major pillar, actually one of the 5 pillars of our North Bay Next initiative. So it's something we're really focused on, because we hear time and time again from developers, architects, and all the people involved in the building process that streamlining and really the certainty of development is a huge part of this. I mean, take the canopy, for example. What was it, 8 years, 9 years? That is a ridiculously long time for a project, especially when we're in the midst of a housing crisis. And so to Chair Fritz's comments, actually, super supportive of what he said. Specifically, though, I'd like to call out, or actually jump back a little bit here. The 2 additional people to the Planning Commission sounds a really straight and simple approach, and with the same established criteria as already in the DRB code or requirements. And then to Chair Fritz's point, if it's not an exorbitant cost, having a on-call architect seems like a fine idea and potentially would still result, I would imagine, quite a bit of cost savings, which I imagine the city manager is very keen on finding at this moment. So just really supportive of all those things. And yes, just one final thing is, if we do the subcommittee, would we have some certainty, ironically enough, around when that process would be completed and when we would be able to move forward with next steps? And with that, thank you so much for your time, and appreciate it.
Thank you, Cal. Anyone else like to speak on this item?
I don't see anyone online.
All right.
And I don't see anyone in the room.
Close public comment. So yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
If we
No,
take an
and
opinion about it,
this
I
was
think a
just-
subcommittee might be a good idea. So let's throw that out there to kind of get more into the details. I think.
Thank you.
Would be
And yes,
helpful.
so council had requested that we talk with our boards and get some initial input. And so thank you all for that. I think that, like I said, we'll probably be coming back to you, but this was really helpful. Thank you.
All right. Do we have time for anything else, or should we wrap it up? And we do not have a meeting next week, or we do?
Correct. You do not have a meeting. There's a special city council meeting, which
Okay.
is why we had to have this special planning commission meeting.
Mhm.
So.
All right. Great. Well, then I will adjourn our planning commission meeting tonight, or this evening. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Recording stopped.